And welcome to Durbania Live. This is my theological review for The Rock, which just so happens to be one of my favorite 90s action movies. But I do have to say this, there's a line that kind of perturbs me in this movie, and it's this one right here.
This man knows our most intimate secrets from the last half century. The alien landing at Roswell, the truth about the JFK assassination.
Did you hear that? How casually he mentions the alien landing at Roswell? A casual mention? Oh, come on. I want that prequel, and I want that prequel right now.
Welcome to The Rock.
Well, welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my theological review for The Rock. This movie came out in 1996. It stars Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, and Ed Harris. And like I said earlier, it's got to be one of my absolute favorite 90s action movies. It's just so incredibly fantastic. Now, there's two reasons why I wanted to review this movie and do it today. Well, there's a couple. One of them is I want to experiment more with doing a live theological review. So something that I definitely want to hear from you for sure is, what are your thoughts on my live theological reviews? Do you want more of these? And while I'm doing this theological review, I want to hear from you. Another reason I'm doing this video is because I have just been out in Colorado with family and just got back and just so happened to find The Rock on Hulu. Now, I should have been responsible because I'm doing a Smallville series right now, and I should have continued my binging of season 7. I did not. I hit play on The Rock right away because I was just so excited to find it. What's up, Aaron White? And what's up, Inception Boy? Hey, yes, R.I.P. Sean Connery. And that's the other reason I wanted to do this, is to honor Sean Connery. And so 1930 to 2020, what we can be thankful for is that he lived a long, full life. He died at the age of 90, but he left us such a wonderful legacy. And The Rock is one of my favorite movies in that legacy. So what I want to ask you right now is, and go ahead and respond to this in the comments, whether you're here live with me now or you're watching this on a replay, what is your favorite Sean Connery movie? I think my favorite is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I love Sean Connery playing Henry Jones Sr. I love how he played off Harrison Ford. I think they were absolutely perfect on screen together, and I think that's my favorite Sean Connery role. But truth be told, like, I don't know too much about his 007 career. I think I finally just saw Goldfinger for the first time, and I think that's the only one I've seen all the way through with him as 007, and he was great. But anything else I've seen him in, he's just absolutely fantastic. And I think The Rock is probably my second favorite Sean Connery movie. And so it's really cool to find this on Hulu when I did, to be able to watch it and now be able to come to you live and talk about it. Let's see here. Inception. Let's see. Let's pull this up. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is my favorite film ever. That's pretty cool. That's a great one. And agreed on the Last Crusade. Yeah, the Last Crusade is just a great way to honor Sean Connery in my mind, because it's just my favorite. I love him and Harrison Ford together on screen. So when it comes to The Rock, I'm definitely going to give this movie a solid B plus. It's not like over the years I've been actively seeking out this movie to watch it again. But seeing it on Hulu, I was just so excited. I was so excited to hit play. I was so excited to watch it. And now it's probably been years since I've seen it. I think the last time I had this movie, saw this movie, is when I owned it on VHS. Yeah. And so it was so cool to watch again. And in rewatching it, I was reminded as to why it was one of my favorite 90s action movies. And one of the reasons that it's definitely one of my favorite 90s action movies is just simply because of the pacing. It's high adrenaline. Like, it opens in this tremendous action-packed scene, and it continues through the end. And through the end, it ends on like an action-packed note. So the whole movie is action-packed from beginning to end. I looked it up, 2 hours and 16 minutes. I had to look it up because it didn't feel like it was 2 hours and 16 minutes. So it was definitely a movie that moved and it had high energy from the very beginning to the very end. But what was so cool about this movie's high energy is in the midst of that, you still got character development enough that you care about the characters. I mean, you have the opening credits title sequence where really you learn about Ed Harris's character, General Hummel. Now, you don't learn everything, but you learn enough to understand his motivation and why he's doing what he's doing, that he's worked with men and led men in covert operations, and they've lost their lives and their families aren't being compensated. They're not being taken care of. Those men are not being honored. And you get that. You get that his wife died, and this has pushed him over the edge. And this leads into a super action-packed sequence where General Hummel and his men break into a facility and they steal some of those BX gas warheads. And in the midst of that, the green string of pearls, one of those balls breaks and it gets into the air. And what you learn is right just on the floor, when it's in the room, it'll kill everybody in the room. And one soldier gets left behind as they shut the door because they have no choice. They have to get out of there. So right there in the beginning, they kind of establish the high stakes of the movie by showing what happens to this one particular soldier and just how intense this is. So I thought that was something incredibly cool and well done because they show you the high stakes. They show you how gruesome it is from the beginning. And then you learn if you take that string of pearls and the whole string of pearls and you blow it up in the sky above San Francisco, it's going to be widespread and it's going to be completely devastating. So they set the stakes at the very beginning of this movie. They do a good job setting the stakes, and then they take that energy and that action and they keep it going strong the whole way through. And so that's what I love about this movie and what makes it so fun. Now, one of my Michael Bay complaints, because Michael Bay directed this, like Transformers, for instance, I hate shaky cam when the camera's just shaking all over the place. I want to like Transformers. I want to like it way better than I do, but I can't see the action because the shaky cam is just insane. I feel like the only place in The Rock where there's a little bit of shaky cam is probably the car chase. Otherwise, I feel like I got to see the action. I could tell what was going on. And that's something that just draws me into it all the more. So I really did enjoy that. I enjoyed that I could see what was going on. I loved every single action sequence in this film. The other thing that is very cool is, so like I said, it kind of, if it slows down a little bit, it slows down just enough for us to get to know characters. But even in those moments, something that keeps the energy up is the musical score. And then seeing Hans Zimmer's name attached to that, like he was part of that. Yeah, Hans Zimmer's probably one of my favorite composers. He does a lot of great musical scores for movies. And I was like, yep, that's definitely why. And so it does a good job helping you feel what's going on in the movie, keeping the mood alive, keeping the energy up, even when it has to slow down for a moment to dump some exposition on us so that we do have some story. So like it does a good job with that. So that's what I love about this movie. I really do love the complete high energy of it. And like I said, it slows down enough for us to meet characters. Now, this is not a deep movie. It's not intended to be a deep movie. Its intention is to be an awesome action film, but it does go just deep enough that we care about the characters. So when we meet Nicolas Cage's character, Stanley Goodspeed, I think it's a great introduction to his character. We see he's a nerd. He's working for the FBI. He's a chemist, and he's not a field agent at all. And then a bomb gets sent to his office and he's got to defuse it. That bomb releases a chemical that starts to eat through their suits. Now, this is a good character arc for Stanley Goodspeed because they have to pull out these shots with these super long needles and jab it in their chest just so that they won't die or seize up while they're trying to defuse this bomb. And Stanley Goodspeed is terrified of that needle, as would I be, and would rather experience like whatever that chemical is going to do to him than, stab himself in the chest with that needle. I totally get that. And so you have that awesome introduction to his character, but you also see he's able to defuse the bomb. So you see right in the beginning, under a high pressure situation, he can handle it. He can think clearly under high pressure and he can do the job that is needed to be done. So it's a great introduction to his character and gives us a starting point for a cool character arc that we're going to get. So that's something that I really did enjoy about that. And I thought that was well done. Something else that was cool is then you meet his fiance. Well, not his fiance at first. She proposes to him because it turns out she's pregnant. And so this gives Stanley Goodspeed the I guess the motivation to do what he needs to do. Because something else that you see in his character arc is when he's told he has to go to Alcatraz because he's the one who knows about these chemicals. He's the one who knows how to defuse the rocket. So he has to go to Alcatraz. He runs into the bathroom and pukes when he finds out that he has to go. And what's cool about that is you see that his girlfriend, his pregnant girlfriend coming to San Francisco gives him that extra motivation and that extra courage to go. And from that point where he's kind of puking in the bathroom, you see him grow up by the end of the movie as he finds that courage. Something that drives me nuts though about his girlfriend or fiance is the fact that he says this might be a training exercise when he's called to San Francisco. So he goes, let's make a weekend out of it. Come to San Francisco, we'll have a good time. And you know what? That's him being a good fiance. That's him taking a negative, turning it into a positive. I mean, that's very cool, very well done on his part. But then he finds out that San Francisco is in danger and this is no training exercise. So he calls up his fiance to tell her, please don't come to San Francisco. But she picks up the phone and she's like, don't you dare tell me not to come to San Francisco. And just slams it down and hangs up on the guy. What is that? That makes her kind of annoying to me. Now, she's not a big role, but she's in there enough that we can understand Stanley Goodspeed's inspiration beyond the fact that he's just trying to save hundreds of thousands of innocent lives. It's also brought home to him. I mean, that's really the only reason why she's there. She's not like this huge role, but that really irritates me that she didn't ask why. Because honestly, if I was called away on something like that and I tried to turn a negative into a positive, I would have called up my wife and I would have said, hey, don't come. And she would not have been like, what? No, you can't do that to me. No, she would have said, well, why? And I would have explained. I can't tell you why. All I can tell you is it's not a training exercise. Do not come. And for the love of all that is good, pray for me. And so Laura would have been okay with that. But not this girl. She just rushes right out to San Francisco without even asking Stanley, why do you not want me to come? So she rushes out there and it kind of annoyed me, but whatever. I understand the purpose of her being there. And that is just one thing that helps Stanley find his courage. And one of the funny things about Nicolas Cage is he's definitely a bit of an overactor in this movie. And I feel like that almost borderline on being kind of goofy and kind of weird, but Sean Connery comes in and balances this out. And I love Sean Connery. Sean Connery has this gravitas. Like he steps out on screen and he has this charisma, this weight that he brings to it. Not only does it totally balance out Nicolas Cage and his acting and his character, but it brings such a balance and weight to the movie. It's incredible. I love that introduction of Sean Connery, John Mason, how the FBI director Womack is talking about what a dangerous guy he is, how he worked for British intelligence. And here's my theory. Come a little closer. My theory is he's James Bond. My theory is in the movie The Rock, they may not have the rights to call him James Bond, but I'm guessing this, that 007 James Bond, it's a title given to a British intelligence agent in that position. And since they disavowed his existence because he got caught after he stole J. Edgar Hoover's microfilm that told the truth about the Roswell alien landing, that told the truth about who killed JFK, these top secret things, I'm guessing that because he got caught, he was disavowed. So he had to go back to his birth name, John Mason, because every description of him is the Goldfinger James Bond, like that character. And I'm like, yes, it's freaking James Bond. But I love the slow motion keys dropping in front of the lock to his cell, unlocking his cell. Him chained up, super long hair, walking in slow motion through that hallway. Just the introduction to this character is incredibly epic and incredibly well done. And you really feel the weight of it. Like when they're in the interrogation scene and they're trying to offer him a pardon after being wrongfully imprisoned for 3 decades, held in the United States without trial, the British intelligence disavowing any knowledge of him and not acknowledging his existence, America not acknowledging his existence. So for all intents and purposes, he's a human being that doesn't even exist. It makes you feel really bad for this guy. But again, it just brings home the weight of it. Makes me think modern day Liam Neeson taking a man with skills. And that's exactly what this guy is, keeping his mind sharp, reading Shakespeare and poetry. He is a man with skills who has managed to keep himself sharp during all of that time. And I love that interrogation scene because eventually you have Nicolas Cage who comes out there because there's a connection between John Mason and Stanley Goodspeed. Like John Mason is doing all these Shakespearean references and all these story references to characters who are wrongfully imprisoned. And Stanley is able to pick up on that because he's an educated man reading the same things. So it shows us right there a good connection between the two. And when he gets sent into that interrogation room and he's all nervous and he's like, well, I work for the FBI. I'm Stanley Goodspeed. And they're like, well, at least he got his name right. Like, I love that scene, but it kind of just shows you this chemistry already between John Mason and Stanley Goodspeed, and where you might have Nicolas Cage overacting a little bit, it kind of works for a character that's super nervous there. But right there in that first scene, we see they have that connection because they're both incredibly intelligent men. But we also see how Sean Connery is bringing a weight to the scene, and it's balancing out what Nicolas Cage is doing, and it's actually making it all work together so incredibly well. So it's this really great moment when they first meet. And what I like about it is it continues, because the only proof that John Mason truly exists is he was the only person to successfully escape Alcatraz. And that's exactly why they want, by the way, there's going to be spoilers in this. That's exactly why they want Sean Connery's John Mason to be here, because he knows the systems of Alcatraz. So 81 hostages held on Alcatraz by General Hummel. They need to find a way to sneak in there, and they need Sean Connery's expertise to get back in, because he was the only one who successfully broke out. And so when he broke out, he fathered a daughter, and he really wants to know his daughter and be a part of her life. So he manages to figure out how to escape the FBI, escape everybody, track her down. And what I love about the scene is once he tracks her down and he's talking to her, she's terrified because her mother has told her stories of her father. And he's trying to encourage her. I'm not an evil man. He's trying to establish a relationship with her. And then all the cops find his location thanks to Stanley Goodspeed, and they show up to take him. And here she is thinking, oh, great, you busted out, which he did. And they're here for you, which they are. But listen to this great moment right here.
FBI, ma'am. Father's working with us. He's helping us resolve a dangerous situation.
He is?
Yes, ma'am.
What I love about that is Stanley Goodspeed helped John Mason save face with his daughter. So John Mason's been nothing but a problem for all of them at this point, and yet Stanley Goodspeed found the humanity in his heart to do that. So here's John Mason, like people willing to throw his life away and bury him and take away his identity, take away the best years and best decades of his life. He's bitter, and probably even rightfully so, even though bitterness is just a poison. And yet here's Stanley Goodspeed standing up for him, helping him save face in front of his daughter. I love that scene because it's one of those moments where it slows down a little bit. So we've seen the epicness of John Mason, how powerful he is, the skills that he has. And now we saw his humanity in wanting to meet his daughter, which leads us into the humanity of Stanley Goodspeed, where he helps him save face in front of his daughter. And so it's a very, very good moment for this movie. It's a very good moment for those characters. And it makes you care about what's going to happen with both of these characters. It makes you kind of like the dynamic between them right from the very beginning. And so I think it does a very good job in moments like that. And then I love it when they break into Alcatraz. Look, this is great right here.
I have no idea. What? But don't worry. It'll all come back to me.
And I love that because here he is. He's supposed to be the expert. He's supposed to be able to tell them how to break in. He's like, well, I don't remember. You know, he was 3 days in the dark. He remembered things by 57 paces this way, 57 paces that way. Then you have this scene, which reminds me very much of Galaxy Quest, where the things were like pounding here and there, and they had to get the pattern and the timing right. I love do you see how epic John, of course you see how epic John Mason is. He's freaking epic. But the fact is he memorized things like that. So you have that great, hilarious moment where, well, no, I don't remember. I can't look at these blueprints and figure it out, but don't worry. I'll figure it out when we get there. And Womack is just upset. He's like, no, my friend, you are not going there. But he has to. He has to be there to have it memorized. And that was a good hysterical moment, followed up by just hardcore action like that, where he's rolling through the fire. He's got the timing memorized. I feel like they do such a great job with that. And then when they finally break in, they come up into the shower room, and Hummel's men just absolutely take out every single one of those soldiers except Mason and Goodspeed. And what's really cool about that is this is a place where Mason really could have escaped. But this shows you how important the relationship is between Goodspeed and Mason, because Goodspeed really reminds him, your daughter is in San Francisco. You got to save her. My fiance, who is pregnant, is in San Francisco. I've got to save her. He's bringing out the humanity in Sean Connery's character, you know, finding the good that is worth saving. At the same time, you have Goodspeed who needs to find his courage. And so throughout this movie, you have Sean Connery who is helping Goodspeed find his courage. And I think that's really great because both these characters help each other discover something about themselves. So both characters really do have a great character arc. You see John Mason soften a little bit as things go. He never loses his edge, but you really see him kind of find his humanity. Whereas you see the opposite with Stanley Goodspeed, who was thrown up in the bathroom before going on this mission, is now finding his courage and he's finding his strength. And so I thought it was very cool how they did that. So, like I said, it's an action packed film. It keeps the energy going and it keeps things strong. And it does a really, really good job, though, of keeping that chemistry alive in the importance of these characters. So I think it really does a good job with that. Now, one of the most fascinating characters, and this is where the movie is deepest, it's with the character General Hummel, played by Ed Harris. And what's so interesting and so deep about his character, and this is where we get a little theological, it's the fact that he has a good mission. He has worked a long time with his men in covert operations. A lot of his men died in those covert operations. So right here he is explaining his true mission.
When they don't come home, their families are told fairy tales about what happened to them and denied compensation.
So that's kind of the heart of what he's going after. And so I think what we see is he's got a good goal. He's got a good end goal. He's got, I guess, in a sense, a good heart because he wants to bring about a good end. But his character is a cautionary tale. His character is a cautionary tale that the ends do not justify the means. Because what General Hummel ends up doing is he does crooked, evil means to get the attention of the government to try to get compensation for the families of the soldiers he's lost so that they could be honored in some way, shape, and form from those covert operations. Yeah, it's a good end, but he does evil things to get that. Now, check this out. This is what it reminds me of. Genesis 4, verse 7. But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. This is creepy right here. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Now, isn't that an interesting verse? Because that verse showcases responsibility on our part. Responsibility General Hummel did not take. Like I said, the movie opens, his wife is dead. She like recently passes, and that becomes the thing that pushes him over the edge. And so as he's being pushed over the edge, sin is crouching at his door. So he picks a sinful way to do something that was probably good. And in going a sinful way, he attracted sinful people. In fact, he even corrupted one of his good friends. I mean, you have those two captains that ended up serving with him. One of them was, all about the mercenary life and wanted that money, the $1 million he's promised. The other one, yeah, he wanted the $1 million he promised, but this little shrimpy dude, he was a killer. I mean, my gosh, when they're in the shower scene, he's like, let's waste these. And, he's the guy that made the noise so that everybody freaked out and the gunfire would start in the shower room. The dude was bloodthirsty. I think he wanted to kill, and I think he wanted to shoot the rockets, and I think he wanted to get $1 million. But the point is, he was surrounded by such evil company because he was picking an evil means to accomplish his ends. So by picking evil, sin was crouching at his door, and stepping into it, sin jumped out and it had him. And it brought about more evil around him. And so more evil purposes were accomplished through him when really he wanted to do something good. And General Hummel's his last words were, my God, what have I done? That's just like the devil. You know what the devil does? He comes as an angel of light. It doesn't look like sin. It looks like light. It looks like the right thing, just like General Hummel. It was the right thing for his men's families to be compensated. So the devil comes as an angel of light with that right thing and making the evil means look like the best possible way to do it. What a noble martyr. What a noble sacrifice. That's what he makes it look like. But then once you step out into that and you cave into what the devil wants, the same devil that tempted you drops the veil, drops the deception. And it's like, my God, what have I done? The same devil that tempted you to it then becomes the same devil that condemns you for stepping out into it. And that's what I feel like General Hummel is an amazing picture of. His last words are tragic because he sees what he's done. He sees what he's become. He sees what he has attracted around him. It's interesting because it reminds me of King David a little bit. King David is known as a man after God's own heart, but he had this one point in his life where his men went off to war and he should have gone, but he stayed home. And when he stayed home, he saw one of his men's wife, Bathsheba, bathing on the roof. And when he sees her bathing, he lusts after her. He takes her into his house and he gets her pregnant. So now he's got to hide this. So he brings home her husband, tries to get him to sleep with her so that the pregnancy could be covered. But he says, no, if my men aren't coming home to sleep with their wives, I'm not doing that. So, here, his man is being an honorable man. So he sends his friend out to the front line to be killed to cover up his transgression. And then once he thinks he has it covered up, this prophet Nathan comes to him and convicts him. Now, when he's convicted, David repents. That's why David is known as a man after God's own heart. He didn't, in pride, remain on the wrong path. He heard the conviction, turned around, and took the right path. That's called conviction. Now, he made a huge mistake. And if you read the story, there are earthly consequences for that huge mistake because our choices, they have consequences. General Hummel's choices had consequences to them. And that's why we need to be careful and pursue God above all else. God forgave David unconditionally and loves him unconditionally. And that story is there as a cautionary tale for us to remind us to pursue God first. Just like General Hummel's story is here as a cautionary tale. The ends do not justify the means. The truth is, none of us is perfect. So I want to leave you with this hope. But if anybody does sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous one. He is the atoning sacrifice for our sins, and not only for ours, but also for the sins of the whole world. Jesus is our advocate. So when we stumble, when we fall, when we make mistakes, he will not leave us. He will not forsake us. He will not condemn us. He will not abandon us, but he will be our advocate and fight for us. And even though there might be consequences to the things that we've done, Romans 8:28, God makes all things work together for the good of those who love him. In no way will he leave us. In no way will he forsake us. He will be with us in the darkest hour, through the darkest times, no matter how much of it is our fault or not. He will not leave. So that is our tremendous hope that Jesus is our advocate in the midst of that. And I love this verse right here. No, in all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loved us, which takes me right back to this first verse. Sin desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Right here, we see the power of the Holy Spirit. And all these things, we are more than conquerors through him who loves us. Jesus loves us, and he's given us his spirit. That spirit gives us the power to overcome. The way we do that, we spend time in the word and we know what God's word says. That will help us avoid a lot of things right there. But we also have the Holy Spirit. When he convicts us, that's not condemnation, which is shame and guilt. It is godly sorrow, like, oh, I am sorry for that. Let me turn the right way. That's what conviction is. It tells us this is wrong, this is right, and we need to follow what is right and follow that conviction of the Holy Spirit. And so that's what I love about The Rock. It's a fantastic action film. It's a ton of fun, and it goes just deep enough that we care about the characters and what's going on with them. Now, I've been doing this for about half an hour now. I want to open it up to you. What is your favorite Sean Connery movie? What is your favorite thing about The Rock? If you watched this movie and you heard what I just had to say, is there a godly message that you see in this movie? Let's see here. Then I love when they yell at Mason, "You wrecked half the city." Yes. Yes, I love that scene too, Aaron, because that is absolutely fantastic in the movie where Sean Connery escapes. He escapes the FBI director and steals that Hummer and wrecks half the city. I do absolutely love that scene. So I leave you with this. What is your favorite Sean Connery film? Let's honor Sean Connery. Let's remember his legacy. Let's be thankful for what Sean Connery has left us. I love this picture in The Rock of General Hummel showing us this cautionary tale. We need to pursue God first. That's the thing that I thought was most interesting. He had a good ends in his heart. And I think that was a good vision that God gave him. A good vision to give him to go get justice for his men, for his men's families to be compensated. I think that was God given, but he didn't pursue it in a godly way and attracted all kinds of evil. He needed to pursue God first. Maybe God's way would have been harder, but God's way would have been better. And if he had pursued God first, God would have led him in the way he should have gone and ordered his steps. It's good to make plans. It's good to have ideas, but it's also good to submit those things to God and pursue him first and let him guide us. So that's what I love about this movie. I think it's a great action film, one of my favorite 90s action movies. I absolutely love it. So what did you guys think of this? Do you like the live theological review model? If you're watching this on a replay, how was that for you? Is this something you would like me to continue doing? Let's talk about that in the comments below. Before I sign off, I definitely want to say a huge thank you. Let me see. I'm still playing with this live stuff. Let me say a huge thank you to every single one of my patrons. Because of you, that's why the support is able, because of your support, that's why I'm able to do what I do. So I just want to say a huge thank you to each and every single one of you. So thank you all so much for joining me for this live The Rock theological review. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments below. And while you're in the comments, hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit that like button. Share this with a friend. And be sure to hit that bell so that you're notified the very next time I do a live video, or the next time I do a movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I got more Smallville on the way. You won't have that tomorrow, but season 7 will be here next week. I am binging it right now. I'm enjoying it, and I can't wait to bring you the rest of that. I'm Durbin. Thank you so much for checking out Durbania.